All right. So, what? Say that one more time, Hank. I didn't quite catch what you said.
Yes. So the reason people don't go out and build adults with their family is that they can't trust their family.
Yes, I agree with you. That's a great point. And I think that why can you trust the neoliberal system more than your family? That's a very interesting
Who
question.
does?
No, it's anti-fragile. It will work more often than your family.
Right. So everything becomes about efficiency over interpersonal relationships. So back to what you said, Jeff. You said, why do people analyze the world as material gain? Is that say that again?
Well,
You said
it's
something
it's
about
something in like cultural Marxism or communism. They when they're analyzing society, they look at the material conditions and factors, the economic, the means of production, that kind of stuff. And it kind of like the behaviorists in psychology look at behavior. They look like at the physical manifestations of psychology. But I don't know enough really about what that is. I was hoping to learn myself more detail on what a material analysis is from like a Marxist or communist point of view.
It's it's the same thing as literary criticism, pretty much.
Well, you know what? I could just ask the AI now that I think about it. Let me
can you rephrase your question one more time? I'm trying to understand exactly what you're asking. I think I
I'm
know.
gonna I'm gonna ask the AI so it can explain it better than I'm trying to do.
A large language
Okay.
model, you mean?
Yes, hey, the one that every single person on the planet still calls AI,
Well, there are a lot of
except
different
for
pieces of software
autistic
used to be called
pedants.
AI. So, like compilers were AI at the time. In the '80s, compilers were AI. Even though they're still AI, they're just not being marketed as such because the free cards got them.
Well, take it up with the retards.
Not the retards, the free cards. The
Oh,
free software people have control of the compilers now, so they're not going to market them. Yeah, the free software project, free open source software has control of the low level virtual machine and the GNU C compiler collection. And so basically, the corporations don't have control over the compilers anymore because they pretty much they push all that proprietary compilers.
So you're saying that analyzing material gain,
oh yeah.
material.
Let me look it up. Hang on. What
Yeah.
is? Let me see if the AI knows what I'm talking about. A philosophical and sociological perspective that emphasizes the importance of material conditions, which are economic factors, technology, social relations, in shaping society and human history. So, like the machine, I guess. It argues that the material base of society, rather than ideas or cultural factors, is the primary determinant of social structure. That's what it is. Everything is downstream from the material, the economic, the technological,
Well,
and
what would
instead
you
of
say?
the cultural and the philosophical. It's a different like approach to
So
analyzing
so
it.
what so what would you say? Where would you say you differ from that? Just to help me understand, like your position, because I'm not sure that.
I think everything is downstream from culture, from art, from philosophy, from religion. It's kind of all the same thing. The products of the human mind, and then society develops in response to the output of human creativity, like the stories we tell ourselves, the things we imagine and believe about the world. But I think, and this is what I want to understand better, the communist or the Marxist would say that no, all of that stuff results from our physical, economic, material conditions. That is a
Yeah,
product of the material. That the material is not an outgrow or outflow of the intellectual. But I'm not sure.
yeah.
That's this. This is the whole reason I wanted to have this discussion, so I could learn
Yeah,
myself.
so they have an issue because they can't derive ideas from the material. So they can't even close that circuit.
Kind of like the in naturalism, like the mind body problem. How you get the mind out of,
Yeah, it's the same problem.
yeah, the observable versus the theoretical or the conceptual, which has been a problem ever since rationalism.
Yes.
If you call it a problem, I guess maybe it's just two different
Well,
modes
well,
of.
well, why do you think it's a problem to analyze the world that way? And I guess what I'm
I do.
saying
I'm
is
not
like,
saying it is. I am not saying it is. I just want to understand what that kind of analysis would look like, so I could see it better myself. It's just not a form of analysis I'm familiar with. I don't have any
Oh,
judgment on it at all.
I do have a judgment on it. I'll say it's a problem because it misses too many important details. Actually, misses important generalities too. So it's just too limited of scope.
Yeah, I
uh,
think that's a lot of paradigms have that limitation. I think you're right. The
Yeah.
behaviorism, I have the same criticism of.
yeah, I mean,
And I
I
have a
look at
criticism of psychology general with that. Its scope's too limited to make sense.
yeah, I look at it more like a tool is the way I would look at it, and I think some people are better at using certain tools than others, and there may be better or worse reasons for using such tools to solve certain problems. I mean, I'm definitely not a Marxist. I think that it has certain problems that I don't really feel like trying to explain, but I think that it is. I think that the more I have understood, Marxist ideas, that it does address certain problems and address certain frames of mind that help you kind of conceive what the problems with capitalism or neoliberalism is as well. So it doesn't mean that I'm a Marxist, but what I'm saying is it does give you a different framework to analyze the problem at hand. But again, we're dealing with people at the end of the day, and that should be number one. So
Yeah.
you're going to have to take into account way more than material, because people don't really make decisions based on a quote unquote rational survivability,
Well, I think there
right?
are some people that believe that they do, and that gives you
Yeah.
this ideology that rests on that belief. But when you say neoliberalism, what do you mean by that?
Well, I'll let Hank answer the definition of that. I don't know what the textbook
Well,
definition
no,
is, but
just when you were using it just now in your head, what were you meaning by it?
whatever
Because
the
you said
textbook definition.
capitalism and neoliberalism, so I was just wondering what the neoliberal part was.
Hank, do you want to answer what neoliberalism is? I
Yes.
don't really know the
I
definition.
guess
Yes.
I guess
So
he's talking about
neoliberalism is
Oh,
basically
oh, hey,
well,
Timmy.
Machiavellianism as a political system.
yeah,
It's,
yeah,
it's realism derived.
yeah. I mean, it's like Milton
That's what we
Friedman,
learn.
Chicago School of Economics type of stuff, right?
So it's like an economic like framework or model or approach.
I would say it is
Sure.
Machiavellianism as a economic political framework, and
Oh,
just a
okay.
political
Yeah,
variant of that
And it
is
kind of
realism.
works in tandem with capitalism.
Yeah, basically it's to pick
correct.
and choose what works kind of ideology, and
Like
Okay.
basically
neoconservatism is just an old neoliberalism.
basically you're a
That's the AI.
neoliberal, uh,
I am.
Jeff. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
a
and I am too.
classical liberal.
Well, I'm a neoliberal.
Well, I'm gonna see what
Well,
the AI tells me. An
My
I would
my
economic
say
and
that.
political ideology that advocates for free markets, limited government intervention, and individual liberty, deregulation, privatization, free. I'm kind of neutral on all this stuff because I would have to look at each individual case and see like some of this may be good in some situations and not others.
yeah,
So
not laws
I'm
as a
not
good one.
dogmatic about it.
Well, I
Not
would
laws
also
as
say
a
I'm
good
neutral
one
on.
there.
Let's see, with the power of nation states is lessened. Oh, okay. That's what y'all
Yeah,
mean by neoliberalism?
Yeah, he's got a good one there. Yep.
Okay.
that's definitely
Yeah, I still kind of
going to
like
be the
nation
outcome.
states, at least right now.
I
Oh
like,
well, but go ahead, Hank.
yeah, like there's policies I like and policies I don't like. I don't like copyright.
Hmm.
We need to make it so we have to prioritize living artists, not dead ones, not record companies. And to prioritize living artists, we have to allow them to use whatever cultural artifact is right in front of them.
Well, but see, this is what I'm saying about neoliberalism and capitalism and all these things. Like again, I'm not a Marxist, but what I'm saying is like the problem is you don't have a choice. Global corporations own your government, they own your military, they own the means of production, they own the tech companies. So if they don't want you to have
Wait,
freedom when it
under
comes
what
to
system? You said
neoliberalism, what we live under currently.
Well, there's still public ownership in some things, but
Sure, but what I'm saying is that as the corporations are basically, like let me put it in these terms. More and more state governments are basically becoming vassal states of corporate structures, in my opinion. So,
what
as
leads you to that opinion? Because here in Washington State, they definitely are not, unless you
And
count like
claim
Microsoft, Amazon.
well, they can afford lawyers and lobbyists to buy, sell, and trade politicians to get certain policies in their favor, and the average person doesn't. So that's kind of what I'm referring to.
yeah, why wouldn't I count Microsoft and Amazon?
Count them as Washington State being a vassal to them is what I'm talking about. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily a vassal to Microsoft here. They're more a vassal
Well,
to political ideology than anything else. And which I would say
wh-
Microsoft is also a vassal to, or used to be. They just
where do
got
you
rid of
think
their DEI department.
where do you think political ideology is coming from? Do you think it's coming from the state or from the corporate structure?
I think it's emergent. I think it comes from all kind of play. It arises as humans interact with each other intersubjectively. It's really hard to design and uniformly apply a top-down ideology across a planet this big with this many diverse people and social media that's connecting us, all these people together. So it would have to be something organic, more or less. I'm not saying it's not nudged along in the academies here and there by individual professors or administrators, but on the scale we see it now, it looks like something that's just organically emerged because the seeds of it have been latent for decades in our culture. So it's not like aliens showed up one day and said, "Here's your new ideology, adopt it," and then boom, it's in everybody's head from the top down. I don't think that's. I think that's how it's happening now, like
So
with the
you're
DEI trainings and stuff like that. They're
so
attempting a
you're
top down.
so you're saying that DEI and transgender kids just emergently appeared without any coercion from any
Yeah,
corporate or
if you trace the roots, the historical roots of any of those individual phenomena, you're going to find multiple like sources and currents that
sure,
flow into making that
but
thing
if
what it is today.
sure, but if governments served as a bulwark against things because it represents the general will of the people, then these things would have been stopped before they became a problem, right?
Yeah, I don't think it was the will of the people to stop most of it. I think the people wanted gay marriage, they wanted civil rights, because I think as Americans that more or less reflects who we are. And I think the will of the people is stopping some of the trans excesses. There's states that have passed medical laws limiting what they can do. So some of the excesses are being stopped by the will of the people in some places.
Yeah, this may be mainly intuitive because I don't really go out to the cities as much, but when I go and talk to the people around, they seem very surprised. Like they seem like very surprised at the state of things. Like they seem like they seem dismayed. They seem ambivalent towards a lot of the social dynamics of our age. A lot of the things that are being taught in schools.
It,
Most of the old people. I mean,
yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
I'm even bothered by some of the stuff
and,
being
and
taught
then
in schools.
and then you see the people who go out and vote, and it's not the majority of the population.
Yeah,
So they're not
it
bringing
never
that
is.
about. So so it's interesting to note like who is actually bringing this about. And if you should think about it, it is people who are politically charged and part of some sort of educated class, literally technocratic, neoliberal like elite. That is literally sort of thinking about these things where most people don't really think about them. You know.
I think politicians come from all over. I have friends that were in politics, and they're not technocrat
Yes, yeah,
overlords or
I've never
whatever.
had a friend that's in that.
Yeah, I think
Well,
politicians are
well,
a little
see,
more diverse than people that are not familiar with them might think from social
Yeah,
media.
so
well,
the
sure,
bureaucrats, well, they're diverse
I
too,
mean,
but
they're us.
there's a
They're
lot more of
people.
them.
Like, what if we all of a sudden found ourselves in Congress? We would be people in a new role that we have to navigate.
You
But
like Mr.
right,
Smith
we're
goes.
not.
but see,
They're not. There's not like a Congress factory where they manufacture these cookie cutter corrupt politicians that are all in lockstep for taking over the world.
Well, sure it is. It's called
which
law
is why
school.
they're a vassal to the corporate
Well, they don't
Yeah,
structure
all
it's
come
too.
called
from
law
law
school.
school either, though, is what I'm saying. Like, I think there's
Yeah,
a
there's so many.
stereotype of what a politician is, and then if you look at the actual set of politicians, you'd find much more diversity than I think people's surface impression indicates.
But again,
That's a good point. I should do a survey. I just should look up what their degrees, careers. I should do a
Right,
survey. That's kind of
right,
neat.
right. I'm pretty sure they're along the same lines. I'm pretty sure most of them are like lawyers or doctors, right?
well,
Some are
and again,
businessmen.
it's regardless if they're diverse or not because they're only there as quote unquote representatives. But look, the system itself. I mean, how many pages of law are written every year just in your local state, uh,
Yeah, that's
senate or whatever?
bureaucracy. That's been around forever, and I hate it
Yeah,
too,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
not anything new.
yeah. There's so many pages of law
yeah.
we can't get an accurate count of them. I mean, Wolfram Alpha has no idea how many laws there are. That's how many laws there are.
That's exactly my point. You
None of
they
that's a new
write.
situation. They even had that in European countries in history. The complexity of the laws.
They make yeah, but my point is they make so many different pages of. I mean, they make so many pages of law every year that even if everybody in the buildings of these things, including the aides and everyone else, sat around for a year not sleeping, they wouldn't be able to read all the laws they're passing. So who's
Good
writing
Yeah,
thing we
these
have
laws?
AI.
Well, corporate lawyers.
and the
And
Corporate lawyers are
Neuroject,
writing
that's a
these
legitimate
laws.
criticism. Like how are you held accountable for laws that no human could possibly read and
That
process?
well,
exactly.
somebody's writing the laws, and that's lawyers. And my point is, who funds lawyers? Well, corporations fund
And
lawyers
and
because
the
the average
government
person
has
can't afford a
lawyers
lawyer.
too.
Well,
So you're talking
that
about,
is true.
but things like you're talking about lobbyists, like influencing politicians to write laws in certain ways. And again, that's also been around forever. None of that's new. Like our
Right.
world didn't suddenly change into this dystopia. If that's the dystopia, that's been our norm for a while now.
Sure, but
So it it it's just the way you're looking at it. You're looking at it in a dystopian way, but you don't have to look at it in that way because this system has been normal for our lifetimes, our parents' lifetimes.
sure, but it's exponentially growing every year. So we
The
went from
system
like
is. We have the
a
same
billion
number of
laws to 10
Congress, the
million.
same number of justices, the same. We have a chief
It's not.
executive.
It's not the same number of laws being written every year.
So
Yeah,
when you say
different
the
numbers of
system,
laws
then you
being
mean the
proposed.
laws,
Right.
the body of law, the output of Congress. and the government.
Yes, that increases because we don't have a way to deprecate laws. We
Yeah,
just
well,
ignore them.
that is to me its own conversation, and it
So,
doesn't indicate conspiracy or dystopia, but it could
so
certainly be something that we could look
well,
at and figure out how to reduce.
let me put it in terms that you can understand. If a corporation can afford to buy lawyers and write laws and enforce those laws, and your average person can't, who do you think is going to have more power
You
in
don't
saying,
think there's checks and balances on corporations? What law are you living under that a corporation did that to you?
I'm sorry?
What
Oh,
law?
it's simple.
What? Give me an
Disney and
example
its
of a law that a
copyright.
corporation
Yes,
used their outsized influence to impose on you.
yes, Sonny Bono Copyright Act. Yes. So yes, that's from Disney.
Okay. Well, copyright was a thing before Sonny Bono.
Yes, but copyright didn't last 70 years post death before that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it
So
didn't last
the
Boom.
95
Sonny Bono
years
law,
or 75 years
he's
post
not a
death for Hall Tardy.
corporation, but he used his
Disney's a
influence
corporation.
to get a law.
Disney got that law passed.
Exactly.
In Seattle, the law that bothered me the most was the plastic bag law, and that was grassroots. That was the people, the citizens. That it
No, it's
was the.
not. No way that's grassroots.
Oh well, you know what?
I
Why don't
think
you
that
look
actually
into
was
it
a
and send me
decision
the
and
evidence? Because
Copyright
I
Act.
was in it when it happened. I remember the campaigning, the
What
groundswell.
is this? What is this situation? I'm kind of
You
in the
can't.
dark now.
Plastic bags are illegal at the grocery stores now, so they charge you like a nickel for a paper bag, or you have to bring
Ah,
your own bag. But they're not allowed to use plastic bags anymore because of the environment.
What if you just
And
ship in a
Washington has a
random
system
plastic
where
bag
if you get enough
to you?
votes, anybody can get something on the ballot, and then the voters vote. They have a referendum system. So if enough grassroots people decide they want a law, they can get enough signatures and get it on the ballot, and then the state votes, and it can become a law. So a lot of our laws happen that way here, and it's from the people. It's not from corporations.
so you said that this was when you were living in Portland, Jeff?
Seattle.
Seattle. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so like
Right.
some states have different ways for the people to.
But you're saying that there's no lawyers involved, there's no
No,
corporation.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all.
Well, it's not just
You
people.
said there's no way that was grassroots, and I said I watched it be grassroots. If you have evidence that it was like astroturfed or something, I'll certainly look at it. But as someone that was living in the location while it was happening, it appeared to be very grassroots to the people here.
Well, why should I care if it's grassroots or astroturf? What difference does it really make?
Neurojack seems to care
Yeah, it's people that's doing it. So what difference does it make if
because
it's
he
grassroots
believes
or
that
astroturf?
money is buying the laws that he has to live under, and I'm trying to find
That-
examples of it
that-
and give examples of other ways that laws are happening outside of the moneyed elite.
Okay.
yeah. How many individual groups of people get together and write laws without a corporate
But it sounds like your your
power behind it?
your criticism is of our legal system in general, like the one that we've had for hundreds of years. It's not that
It's
we're
not.
suddenly living under this new. It's
Well,
that you
hold
don't
on,
like our system.
hold on.
You probably wouldn't like any modern system because they all write laws. They all rely on tomes and volumes of laws and codes and policies. So the modern world runs on that shit. That's like the code that
Sure.
drives the modern
Okay,
world.
so
And
you're
so
saying
if that's your grievance, that's everywhere. And that's
right,
been everywhere for like decades.
right. But you're saying it like it's stayed static. Like, oh, we just have the same legal system as 250 years ago. It's not changed
No, I
whatsoever.
didn't say if I gave the impression that it stayed static, I don't think it stays static. I know it's a very dynamic system and it's always changing. We have an entire body of government
Well, then,
responsible
Yeah.
for making new laws.
don't say it's the same system when it's not the same system.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
only been the same
it's the
for like
same
100,
political system that we've
for like
had
100
since
years.
they
Give
founded
or
it.
take 100 years, it's been the same. But yeah.
It's the three branches
Yeah,
of
I'd
government, the
say give or
checks and
take 100
balances,
years.
the
I could
Constitution.
make
The Constitution itself is the system. That's the ultimate foundation for the system. Everything else is
well,
downstream
yes,
from
but
that.
you're building an extension over the Constitution. Like, when's the last time we passed a constitutional amendment? I think it was like 1960 or something.
Yeah, and again, you have the freedom of speech, but obviously it's been limited severely if it's inconvenient to a corporation, a politically empowered group of people, like whatever. I mean, your quote unquote constitutional rights or whatever definitely aren't like carte blanche. They're limited all the time
Well,
for
the Supreme,
any
yes,
number
there
of
are limits on our rights, and the Supreme Court has the limits on speech currently set. They've been pretty
right. So it
consistent
actually
for a
all comes
while.
down to interpretation, not the law itself. It's always going to come back to interpretation at the end of the day, of
Well,
course.
that's all you ever have with text. Like no text
Exactly.
interprets itself. It always takes a human to
Exactly.
come
So,
along
so
and
basically, whoever owns the most amount of lawyers or the most amount of people to sway the minds of the people in order to manufacture consent, then
I
they're
think that's simplistic and reductive. I think the world works way
so
more
so so
complex and
don't
nuanced than just that.
okay. So
That's like you're describing a board game. You're not describing the complexity of running a government of individual human beings.
the complexity of what that doesn't mean anything. What are you trying to say?
Individual humans, me, you, everybody on this panel, are very complex people. When you put thousands and thousands of us together running a system, it doesn't reduce to this little simplistic formula or algorithm that you're describing.
Sure, but people are people. You can definitely scientifically figure out like what motivates most people and use that information and market to them their
Yeah,
own.
advertising does that. And do you buy every product you see? Like, you don't think people are dismissing some of the influences that bombard them every day and selecting the ones that already resonate with them somehow,
Sure,
however they're
but,
like not
but
we're not just blank slates that are out there being puppeteered by every advertisement that we see.
sure. Do you think society's improved in the last 100 years, or
I think
still
it's improved
pretty?
in many ways, and I think it's not improved in some ways. It depends on what you're looking at and what metric. And I guess that's my whole problem with this conversation is it's zoomed out to such a generalized lens. It's like a little charcoal sketch, like a little stick figure sketch of reality. It's not zoomed in on a level where I can
Okay,
see the details of what you're talking about. It's like if you looked at it from a distance, how it might look. But that's not how it actually works when you get
so,
up close.
so you just said that everybody is an individual, everybody's different, everybody's hard to manage.
I didn't. You putting words in my. I didn't say hard to manage. They can be.
I said hard man. That's me.
Oh, okay.
So, but you said everybody's an individual, everybody's different, right?
Yeah, human beings are complex. Individual human beings. Just look at this panelverse. Can you imagine us trying to run a government?
Okay, well then why?
Yes, yes. Unfortunately, I've been in that situation. I used to do community organizing, and we had panel discussions when we were afraid of Obama because I was a Republican. So yeah, I've been in
Like,
this game for decades, and we count my on offline experience.
okay. So again, can you imagine this panelverse running the government? People,
It
individuals are
does.
complex. It seems like you think there's this like indoctrinated army of like cyborg androids that take orders from some Doctor Evil in an underground lair, and the politicians or whoever pays them the most money, and they just go write those laws.
Do people generally do what they're paid to do to keep their job and their house and their car and their wife
Yeah,
and
and Congress is paid to respond to the needs of its constituents, so that's what they're doing.
who pays the most people in this country? Is it corporations or just like little
The
mom and pop?
Jays, I'm sure.
All right.
So that's a very complicated question. Most people get paid for magic money that we just poof up from thin air.
Right. And that has no influence whatsoever on how they make decisions, right?
You were okay. You're jumping around this conversation because we were talking about the body of
No, we're
laws
talking about we're talking,
that are getting
let's
more and more
talk
complicated
about
and now we're
we're,
talking about what
let's-
influences the
we're
average
talking
person.
about the complexity of people and their motivations.
And
If
you
you
think they're
don't
more
work,
simple? Like you could show them something, you
don't
could show them a
get
tweet, and they're gonna just
money. If
march
you
out
don't
and
get money,
respond to that tweet.
if you don't get money, you don't get food, you don't get status, you don't get sex, right?
I don't have I have very little of most of that right now, and my life is just fine. In many ways, it's never been better.
Well, yeah, I
So
guess
Yeah.
nobody's using that to control me.
right.
Well, no one's using that to control you specifically, but other people may be controlled by some of that stuff
They have the
too.
ability to make choices, don't they? They have the ability to decide if they want to stay in that situation or leave and go find a different situation that doesn't control them as
I'm
much,
going to
right?
quote
Well,
live.
they could leave, but it doesn't mean that there's a different place to go that's
But they
not
still
connected to
have
that
the
same
ability
environment.
to make decisions about what they want to do, right?
Yes, they have the
Okay. Then
ability to
as
make
long as they
decisions,
have
but they
that,
don't
they're
have the
not being
ability
controlled.
to
You
the
know I'm not
environment.
gonna you know how I feel about the victim narrative. You're not gonna convince me to see
Yeah.
most people as victims.
I never employed a victim narrative.
No, I'm talking to Nero Jack.
Oh, okay.
Well, I never said victim either. Did I ever say the word victim? I don't think.
No, but if
Well, you
that's what
had the
you're
victim
implying,
narrative, you know that.
because as long as people have what I just described, and you all acknowledge that yes, we do still
I'm
have
saying
that, they're not being controlled.
I'm
They might be
saying
being
Well,
influenced, but every individual has the choice of how they respond to influence.
okay. So where do you draw the line
yeah,
between?
like some people may just choose to just murk themselves because they can't get any choices they want. That's a
Well,
choice.
they should get better at getting choices.
And if not, fuck them, right? That's liberal
I,
capitalism.
I I I tend to have less sympathy for people that deliberately refuse empowerment or are consistently disempowered when they have the ability to empower themselves. So like I don't understand the psychology of
Well,
someone that
well,
has the ability to get them out of a situation but would rather sit
so
there and play the
so
victim. So I
give
have less sympathy for
give
that.
give me a definition of self empowerment. What does that mean to you?
Getting yourself out of a situation, figuring out what you can do to solve your own problems, not relying on a solution to come from outside of yourself. Like using your own skills and abilities and ingenuity and resourcefulness and intelligence and know how to put yourself in control of your life instead of somebody else. And I think a lot of what this is, like this sense of being controlled or we're at the mercy of the government, I think only people with a disempowered psychology could even really like abide in that vision for very long. It's so alien to me because I'm constantly finding ways of how can I be more in control of my life, and I find them all the time.
Why is control of your life a good thing?
Because I say it's a good thing. Because for me, it's a good thing. Whatever good is,
And,
it
and
meets
so
that criteria for me.
so community doesn't matter. Other people don't matter.
How do you get
One.
that conclude? How do you get that? And you know better than that because I do a whole channel building community. So how do you get that community doesn't matter just because somebody thinks it's a good
You're
to
saying
have control over their life? Like
saying-
how are the two even
because
correlated?
you're saying that you're the measure of all things.
No, see, you keep putting I am not being an effective communicator right now because you're hearing
So,
all kind of stuff in
so
what I'm saying that I'm not putting into it.
you're saying that the definition of success to you is like basically self empowerment, which means that you are the progenitor of all things.
No, that's meaning that you're super adding on to what I'm saying. I was just you asked me for my
Okay.
definition of self empowerment. That's what I was trying to give. I wasn't trying
All
to make
right.
some
So
grand
I know
dogmatic
both of
claim
your
about.
issue. This is a context issue. We need both of you to go slower so you can actually communicate.
Well, I'm about to go on my channel. That's what I'm about to do. So if he wants to wrap it up here,
Give me a triple snap in S formation, and
let me see if I remember my. It was Z formation. It wasn't S, but I could try to do a S triple snap and S formation. Look at that.
there you go. See.
Still got it.
No, but and again, like I'm kind of like being a dick about it, but I'm saying like you're saying
You're
that
just being
self
confusing,
empowerment.
not a dick.
No,
Just
no,
confusing.
You're saying that self empowerment is like the end all be all
No, I didn't say that either. I contrasted it to victimhood and what you were describing.
And
I think you're not listening very
so
carefully to
implying
what I'm actually
you're
saying, and you're
implying
hearing all kind of other things.
okay, but here's the thing: you're implying that victimhood isn't self-empowerment. I would argue it's the opposite.
I think there is. There is power in victimhood. I think it's manipulative and it's not a form of empowerment I respect. But I think people that play the victim card are seeking some form of
Okay,
power over their
so it's all
situation,
okay.
not in a way that puts them in control, though, in a way that
Okay, so,
involves
so
others in finding a solution for them.
okay, so but I just want to make sure I understand this. So both victimhood and self-empowerment come from your personal perception of the situation. Am I understanding that correctly?
You Are you talking about me as an outside observer or the person in the situation?
I'm
It's
talking.
but the answer would be both either way. It comes from their own mental attitude toward the situation, and it comes from my own what
So
I'm
okay,
looking
so
for in a
what
situation
you're
when I'm outside of it.
okay, so what you're saying is, regardless of the situation you're in, you just have to choose if you're going to identify either A as a victim or B as a self-empowered Superman.
Yes, I think you definitely have the ability to make that choice. For me, it's not even a choice. It's so ingrained in me, I just default to it. But people could, like with any emotional thing, if you get that pause, if you can
Okay,
find enough pause to get
so
some
so
thought
so
involved, then you could start choosing, like identifying other options and choosing between
so
options at that point.
so hypothetically, let's say that you're walking down the street and five young scholars come and beat you up and put you in the hospital for 6 months, right? Do you call? Would you call yourself a victim of a crime, or would you say I'm an
Yeah.
empowered individual?
I've had my nose broken before. I was an actual victim of crime. They have a department in Vegas you go file a claim with, and
Hold on! Don't call yourself a victim. That's
well, in
that's
that case I was. But
well, I
I
don't
can
know.
tell you every single thing I did leading up to that point that could have changed the outcome if I had not made certain choices.
Oh, okay. So you're
So
now you're
there was definitely contribution on my part to how that situation ended up.
okay. Okay. So
I didn't
you're
throw the punch. The
so
guy threw the punch and he
so
hit me and he broke my nose and I was a victim of that. But
you're a
there are
self-empowered.
definitely decisions and choices I made that led up to that.
So you synthesize self-empowered victimhood in order to give yourself an out to the rule, which is
Yeah, you caught me. I thought I could come on here and hide it, but the gig is up. You saw right through me.
I'm
And
just
I'm
saying.
so embarrassed now. I feel like I just need to run off into my own little corner and go back to my place and not come out for a while.
I'm just
This was
pushing,
the first panel, honestly, I've been on in like probably maybe months,
and it'll
weeks.
probably be the last one for a few months more. I'm sure.
No, that was kind of fun. I'm gonna come blow up Pill Eater's little game every time I see him now that I know I have that power.
Uh oh, you're feeling empowered. We need to
Yep,
make you.
I'm empowered. He done empowered me. He's, he's my victim now. No, I'm just kidding.
Twitter versus Senate chapter page when?
I saw that you were on, and I felt like I owed you a panel, so I
No,
wanted
I
to
appreciate it, and
come have a cup of coffee with you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's fun, and I hope that you'll have fun at your channel, and really do appreciate it. And again, this is not personal. It was just
No,
teasing the.
no, I had fun too. Definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah,
You know,
that was fun, Joe.
good seeing everyone. TML, good seeing you, and Hank. See you around.
Good
All
to see
right,
you.
take care, everyone. I'll head over to my place in a few minutes, so I'll join you there. Let's see. How do I just hit remove? I think so.